My boss stood at the podium at the company retreat, grinning as he gushed over her accomplishments, his affair partner. Everyone clapped, but I froze, my mind racing. After weeks of witnessing her rapid climb fueled by private jokes and closed-door commendations, I knew I was onto something. This wasn't just office politics, it was personal. By the end, you'll see exactly how one bold move can upend an entire hierarchy, and how the moment you choose to speak up could make or break your career. It all began with the smallest signs, the kind that are easy to ignore until they aren't. Looking back, the favoritism wasn't obvious at first. I'd noticed the way they lingered after meetings, sharing a look that felt just a bit too familiar. Maybe I was imagining things. Office gossip had always circled around our boss, but I tried to give the benefit of the doubt. Still, things started shifting quickly. She was suddenly in charge of projects that would normally go to more senior staff, and her input was treated like gospel. The rest of us kept plugging away, but it felt like we were invisible. What really got to me was how little pushback she faced, even when her work missed the mark. She'd turn in reports that needed serious revisions, and instead of getting called out, she'd get a public thank you. At team meetings, her name came up for every win, even when the heavy lifting was done by people behind the scenes. I'd see her bask in the attention, while the rest of us, especially those who ended up fixing her mistakes, stayed stuck in the same roles. It was hard not to notice the gap growing between her and everyone else. The moment that still sticks with me happened one afternoon during a strategy session. I pitched a new idea, one I'd spent weeks refining, with data and projections ready to go. My boss barely acknowledged it, moving on without discussion. Later that day, she presented a nearly identical idea, just tweaked enough to seem new. Suddenly, the room was buzzing. People clapped, nodded, a few even called it brilliant. My boss leaned over and told her, "You always get what we need before anyone else does." I sat there trying to keep my face neutral, but inside I was seething. She caught my eye and gave a little smile, as if daring me to say something. Studies show favoritism at work doesn't just frustrate people, it drains motivation and makes teams less effective. I saw that happening around me. People stopped volunteering ideas. The group chats got quieter. My friend and fellow analyst, who always had a quick joke or a new angle, whispered to me during lunch, "What's even the point anymore?" I didn't have an answer. The sense of unfairness hung over everything, making each day feel heavier. It all came to a head late one evening. I'd stayed behind to finish a client proposal and realized I'd left my notes in the conference room. When I walked in, the lights were still on. Her scarf was tossed over a chair, and my boss's phone sat on the table, buzzing with a new message. I glanced over, and the preview alone made my heart pound. There was no mistaking the intimacy in what I saw. In that instant, I realized I held the proof that would change everything. The rumors weren't just rumors. Now it was real, and it was in my hands. With that knowledge, everything about the past few months made sense. The promotions, the public praise, the sudden rise in her status, it all fit together. I stood there, weighing what I'd just discovered. The question wasn't whether favoritism was happening. It was what I was going to do about it, knowing what it might cost to act. The promotion announcement was what finally forced me to face everything head on. I sat at my desk, half listening to the meeting streaming from the boardroom, when her name came up. Another promotion, this one bigger than the last, giving her real authority over people who had put in years of hard work. I could feel the tension in the office as her photo appeared on the screen. No one said anything out loud, but the looks exchanged across the room said enough. This wasn't just favoritism anymore. It was a public display of how little merit seemed to matter. For days after, I turned it over in my mind. Speaking up wasn't just a matter of venting anymore. It meant putting my own position, my relationships, and my sense of security on the line. I kept picturing the worst-case scenarios. Maybe no one would believe me. Maybe they'd believe me but wouldn't care. I could already hear the whispers, calling me jealous, bitter, trying to stir up trouble, and I knew how quickly things could turn ugly for anyone who challenged the status quo. But staying silent felt just as risky in a different way. Every time I let it slide, I felt like I was letting myself down, letting the whole team down. This wasn't just about me or the handful of colleagues who kept getting overlooked. It was about the kind of place we were all working in, a place where connections trumped everything else. Each day, the sense of unfairness grew heavier. I'd catch myself staring at my screen, trying to justify doing nothing, but the excuses never held up. The scale kept tipping back and forth in my mind. On one side was everything I'd built, my reputation, my job, the routine I'd come to depend on. On the other was the growing sense that I couldn't just watch this happen. Each new perk she received, every project that landed in her lap, made it harder to stay quiet. Many people stay silent out of fear of backlash, and I understood that more than ever. But the idea of being a bystander to all of it started to feel worse than the risk of speaking up. Eventually, I decided to handle it the way I would any high-stakes project. I cataloged emails, meeting notes, and timestamps, everything I'd gathered over months, like assembling a dossier. I mapped out exactly what I would say, when, and to whom. This couldn't be a careless accusation or just another rumor. If I was going to do this, it had to be clear and irrefutable. While putting everything together, I realized I'd never forgive myself if I stayed quiet again. The unfairness was too loud to ignore, and my need to act finally outweighed my fear of the consequences. The company retreat was coming up, a rare moment when everyone would be in the same room, away from the usual routines and distractions. It felt like the right setting, the only place where my voice might actually be heard. As the date approached, I could feel the nerves building. I kept running through the plan in my head, rehearsing what I'd say and how I'd back it up. The stakes were high, but I was ready to face whatever came next. The retreat was supposed to be a celebration, a way for the team to relax and bond. But for me, it was about to become the stage for something no one would see coming. The company retreat took place at a high-end resort a few hours outside the city. The air conditioning hummed in every meeting room, a steady backdrop to the low buzz of conversation. People lounged by the pool or drifted between strategy sessions, but the atmosphere was tight. Every glance seemed a little sharper, every laugh a little forced. The favoritism wasn't just a rumor anymore. It was something everyone could feel, even if no one wanted to say it out loud. With everyone under the same roof, it felt like the walls themselves were listening. During the morning sessions, I kept to the back, notebook in hand, trying to stay invisible. My boss was in his element, moving through the crowd, always ready with a joke or a compliment. When he singled her out for praise, his voice took on a warmer tone. She sat in the front row, her smile bright and unwavering, almost like a challenge. I kept thinking about what I'd brought with me, the emails, the messages, the hard evidence, and how it weighed down my bag. It was hard to focus on anything else. As the day wore on, I watched her move through the crowd, collecting congratulations and inside jokes from people who had learned to play along. The retreat was supposed to be about unity, but all I could see were the cracks. I caught snippets of conversations, someone muttering about fast tracks, and another person rolling their eyes when her name was mentioned. No one said anything outright, but the tension built with every hour. I kept running through the plan in my head, checking the evidence, rehearsing what I'd say. The risks circled in my mind. If I spoke up, I could lose my job, my reputation, maybe even friends. But if I stayed silent, I'd be complicit. The fear didn't go away, but it started to feel smaller than the need to do something. After lunch, the team gathered for the main presentation. Chairs were pulled into tight clusters, and the air felt thick. My boss stood in front talking about growth, teamwork, and how proud he was of everyone. When he got to her, he lit up, listing her achievements and inviting her to stand. Her smile seemed to fill the room. My fingers curled around the edge of my notebook as I stood. "Can I say something?" My voice cut through the chatter. The room shifted, all eyes on me. My boss looked surprised but nodded. I stepped forward, heart pounding but words steady. I started laying out the facts. Dates, emails, meetings, the patterns no one wanted to see. I spoke clearly, naming the ways her promotions and praise didn't match her work. The room was silent, except for the sound of my own voice. Then I shared the proof, the messages that confirmed what so many had suspected. I didn't look at her right away. I kept my eyes on my boss, letting the evidence speak for itself. "This isn't just unfair," I said, voice even. "It's changed how we work together, and everyone here knows it." The silence that followed was sharp. I caught Jasper's wide-eyed stare in the back row, his hand frozen halfway to his mouth. Someone shifted in their chair. My boss didn't say a word. His face was unreadable, but I could see the anger behind his eyes. She looked stunned, as if the ground had shifted under her feet. No one rushed to fill the silence. The weight of the truth hung in the air, impossible to ignore. In that moment, I realized what it meant to choose action over comfort. The fallout would come, but for now, the facts were out in the open, and there was no way to pretend otherwise. After everything, I found a confidence I never knew I had. Speaking up forced me to face my own fears and priorities, and I realized silence isn't the safer option. It's just the easier one. As people started questioning what they'd ignored for months, I saw the balance begin to shift. If you've ever faced injustice at work, share your story in the comments below. Would you take the risk to hold someone accountable, or stay quiet to protect yourself? How far would you go to defend what's right?